Hello, everyone. I am Charlie Tolhurst, and welcome to the Tonight Show podcast for tonight, the 8th of November, live on YouTube. Unfortunately, due to me having busy commitments this weekend, I have moved the show to a Wednesday night. We got a Wednesday night full of news to talk about, and I'm joined by Labour Party supporter Zach Chambers around all the latest news. Hello, Zach.
Hi, Charlie. Hello, mate.
Well, November certainly gives us lots of news, and we're going to go through and we're going to start a little bit differently again, because we're going to now announce the sports news will be the first segment that we are going to open up on the show. However, though, before we do that, we're going to go through some of the day's top stories, which is whilst we're here, before we go into do the sports news. The top stories from this week are: Rishi Sunak will outline two crucial promises from the Met Police after demanding answers from the Armistice Day marches. Rishi Sunak has outlined two crucial promises that he is demanded to meet police ahead of the MP's Remembrance Sunday as London braces for protest. Issuing a statement this afternoon, he said, after a meeting with Sir Mark Rowley, the Prime Minister said the Met Police have confirmed the march will be away from the Cenotaph and will ensure that the timings do not conflict with remembrance events. Also, as well, in some more news that has been announced, we also have as well President Hunter Biden's son and family and other members are subpoenaed after impeachment probes that comes as congressional Republicans issued legal summons to several members of the Biden family in escalation of their impeachment to the president as well. And also as well, in Gaza, the Welsh Parliament have also called for a ceasefire. That comes at saying more than 10,000 Gazans have died in the region. The Welsh Parliament called for a ceasefire on the vote Wednesday evening. First Minister Mark Trafford abstained as 11 of his Labour backbenchers supported a plaid climate motion exploring the conflict. So that's all of the top stories. Me and Zach will review them after the sports news. Let's go over the sports news now. Formula One raced at the weekend in Brazil. It was not called the Brazilian Grand Prix, it's called the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. And Zach, Max Verstappen, 17 wins this season. Is this man ever unbeatable?
The answer is doesn't appear to be likely, apart from the two times or 2-3 times this season that he's actually lost something as well. That appears to be where he's been a bit unbeatable at the moment. But yeah, it feels like he's been unbeatable, and this another win, another race, another win for him. Very simply, he did the job again. He got pole on the Friday, obviously because I had Friday qualifying then, and then converted that into a very healthy victory on the Sunday as well. I mean, it was again another pretty much all-out drive for Max Verstappen as well. Lando Norris, second position and driver of the day. Fair play to him. He started a bit lower down the field, but he managed to get through the field really well, and excellent performance from him in second position as well. The driver of the day for me, we ran out of voting towards the end of the driver of the day. Fernando Alonso, I mean, based on that last lap alone, deserved driver of the day. He was behind Perez by the time he got to the first corner in the final lap, then got ahead again as well, incredibly, by the time they got to turn 3 in dramatic fashion. And then it looks like Perez in fourth position was about to take that third position back again on the start-finish line, but missed out because of a immaculate defending by Fernando Alonso by 44 1,000th of a second to Fernando Alonso on that final lap in incredible fashion. That was probably one of the closest positions for a podium all season, and one of the most dramatic all season long. So well done, Alonso. Aston Martin definitely back on form this weekend with Lance Stroll in fifth position as well. They had a good qualifying. I think it was more luck of anything, but they seem to have a race pace as well to do it. So fair play to them. Carlos Sainz is sixth. We'll get onto his team out in a mo as well. Pierre Gasly seventh. Lewis Hamilton in a miserable eighth position. Williams sum up a miserable weekend for Mercedes. Just had been off the pace, the wrong setup, the wrong car all weekend, I think, as well. Yuki Tsunoda ninth. I think some well-earned points for him. Esteban Ocon finishing that lap down in 10th position. And then outside, we had Logan Sargent 11th, Hulkenberg 12th, Ricardo 13th, Oscar Piastri, unfortunately, got caught up in a rather big lap one accident, which unfortunately he was an innocent passenger of. I believe he got hit by behind. I can't remember who it was.
It was Kevin Magnussen and Kevin Magnussen and Alex Albon that got caught up in that first lap.
Yeah, I think it was, if I remember rightly, Gasly might have got hit. Might have went into the back, or somebody went into the back of Oscar Piastri in the first lap in that big lap one accident. Piastri's rear wing was damaged, and several others as well, and unfortunately he was just off the pace. It was unfortunate for him. I think he was in his pasture as well. There's Ricardo in 13th. It also got damaged, by the way, on that lap one incident as well. Rear wing also got caught, I believe, hit by a wheel rim from one. I think it was one.
That was from the Williams.
Yeah, or the Williams as well. George Russell 15th, and unfortunately had a mechanical issue. I'm afraid the car got too hot, I believe, as well. Engine could have caught fire, so it didn't, thankfully, but it could have caught fire, so they retired the car. Bottas as well, power unit problems as well. Power unit problems for both Bottas and Zhou Guanyu in 16th and 17th. Magnussen was 18th and out of 19th, obviously caught up in that lap one accident. But Charles Leclerc, this is bizarre for him. I think it was a hydraulics failure on the formation lap. That meant he crashed out, unbelievably, on the formation lap. I mean, blimey. That's quite something to crash out on the formation lap. But Leclerc crashed out on the formation lap because of a hydraulics issue, lost the car, and did not start the race. So dreadful, so an unfortunate result for Charles Leclerc there. As well, and I think it was very unfortunate on that one as well. But Max Verstappen dominating this game this weekend, last weekend as well, to take his how many wins this season? The 17th win of the season. An absolute immaculate job for him as well. 2 more races left to go now, and next up we have the debut Las Vegas Grand Prix. Well, kind of, but this is the first of its kind, shall we say? I mean, they did race in Las Vegas before.
Caesar's Palace.
Back at 19, I think it was Palace Star Circulus as well, something like that.
Yeah, Caesar's Palace. It was in the 80s, I remember. It was on a car park circuit in a hotel at the time.
Yeah, it was actually. And I think it wasn't a well-received track from what I remember as well. I think it wasn't... If we go back to these days, people would rate the tracks, it wouldn't be highly rated out there. But yes, Formula One is back in Las Vegas for the first time since the 1980s. It's going to be the first ever Las Vegas Grand Prix as well. It's going to be quite the spectacle, I have to say. It really is going to be absolute spectacular to watch. There'll be, let's describe the circuit really. I mean, it's 6 kilometers long. They will be racing on the strip. I think it's like 1.5 mile long strip. Actually, they're going to be also doing it in a front stretch on as well. So it's going to be incredibly high speed circuit. There's a bendy second sector, but it's going to be a very high speed, I think, low downforce circuit. That's going to test really. Truly, the engines of these cars. We're going to go into quite an unknown. There it is, right there, as well. It's going to be fast. It's going to be spectacular to look at. There'll be lots of celebrities, and I remember that I think this is for the first time as well. An F1 race is taking place on a Saturday for the first time in a long time. Although it's Saturday local time. It's actually Sunday morning UK time as well. It will be the race will begin at 6 a.m. in the morning for UK viewers. Unfortunately, so that means I have to get up at the brilliant old time of 4:15 on a Sunday to to enjoy the race. But I'm okay with that. But qualifying will take place at Saturday morning as well. So we're having qualifying and the race on the same day, literally. And the reason why it's on the same day is qualifying starts at midnight Las Vegas time. I mean, midnight in the middle of Las Vegas. That's quite the spectacle, I imagine. That will be at Las Vegas. I mean, midnight. You wouldn't get the events normally that late. So yeah, it's all going to be done on the Saturday, qualifying in the race, and qualifying and practice will be done Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, Friday morning as well. Las Vegas, but it'll be Friday, Saturday, Sunday here in the UK as usual, just because of the time differences as well. I mean, it won't be the first Saturday race F1's done. I mean, next year there'll be a couple of Saturday races actually, I think, as well. So, but yeah, this is the circuit as you can see. It starts out quite well. There's a turn one is going to looks tricky, quite fast, and then we go into 2 and 3, which is going to look bendy. 4, and then there's 5 and 6, and there's a little very narrow bit 6 and 7, 7, 8 there, and then it goes down, and then there is the strip though. By the way, that front stretch, I mean, that is going to be ferociously fast, as well. It's going to be very fast. Well, this will be a test, I think, for the engines. The temperatures are going to be very cold as well. There's going to be a lot. This might be really good for tire life because it's going to be really cold. I think at night as well, if I remember rightly as well.
Yeah.
I read somewhere it could get those 4 degrees as air temperature as well, which would be bloody freezing if that's the case. I don't know how long. I mean, like, I don't know what. Let me look at the weather for Las Vegas and Nevada, because I'm very interested to see what the weather will be like. I mean, I can't really predict what the weather will be.
It'll be a cold race, is all I'm going to say. Remember the Eiffel Grand Prix in 2020 when they raced at the Nürburgring and we had drivers complaining, they couldn't warm their tyres up. It was like trying it, like Max Verstappen. I think Lewis Hamilton moaned as well. I mean, he's going to be getting the tyres into the operating temperature that the F1 drivers will struggle with. And certainly on a track like Las Vegas, where we've got high average speeds, 90-degree corners, mistakes here will be costly to your Grand Prix, certainly.
And I have to say as well, Charlie, if it's going to be as cold as what they're forecasting, the hard tyres are going to be an absolute miserable tyre to be on. I don't expect that although they're obviously the hard tyres are going to be absolutely miserable, no doubt about it as well. I think what you'll find out is a lot of drivers, because it might be that cold. I mean, if I go to what we are today, the current provisional temperatures for Las Vegas in the evening is going to be 7 degrees air temperature on the Saturday and the Sunday. That is really cold. So, and actually the track temperatures is probably going to only be like, I don't know, 20 degrees at most. So actually, this will be a race. Not only that, it will test the engines because how amount of speed that they'll be using on the front stretch and everything. No doubt about that. But there's going to be a few narrow corners. There's some narrow sections, twisty middle section as well. But there's a really huge long straight as well. But I think the tyres are going to be really tested as well, because I think the hard tyres are going to be useless on a circuit like this in really freezing cold conditions. And you'll probably find a lot of drivers will bring a lot of soft tyres with them, and they'll last longer than what they would normally run anywhere else. I mean, I think they'll last very long on these circuits, actually. And I think that'll be a very consistent. A lot of drivers will use those soft tyres as well, because it is a very fast but cold circuit, and most drivers will want to be on the soft tyres as well for some race. I mean, medium will be in use as well, but I don't expect a lot of hard tyres to be used, because they'll be, quite frankly, ineffective on a cold circuit as well. That's what I just feel like it's going to be at the moment. It's just not going to be very warm at all, and the temperatures will drag it down very much.
It's going to be it'll be a chilly night. I reckon it will create more action for the fans, definitely with the racing. I think mistakes are highly likely at this circuit. If the runoff is if there's not much runoff, then drivers, if they make a mistake, the barriers could be right next to them. And it's a fast track as well. This is going to be a tester for any F1 driver. You know, it's not like the Nürburgring where it's all corners and technical. This is a fast track. This is like, we're probably going to be looking at some of an average speed, probably, maybe not Monza's obviously going to be fast, but an average speed here is going to be very high. So looking at them long straights, you've got to be careful if you make a mistake and you're on a cold track where you're going to probably have very little grip, especially say if you're on the hard tyre. Formula One drivers and team strategists this weekend will not want to use that tyre, given in Brazil the shocking pace of that tyre we know was bad. This will create a very difficult ground for Formula One, and Mercedes especially have got to up their pace after a terrible weekend last week. I was going to say back to the Brazilian Sao Paulo race, Mercedes terrible last week. What was going on with that? One of the worst races for them in a long time. Terrible strategy. The car was wrongly set up, and the degradation as well on the tyres was just terrible. They did not like any tyre. They were really struggling. Lewis Hamilton luckily finished in the points, but it was an embarrassing weekend for the Silver Arrows. And I mean, Red Bull were much happier than Mercedes were. And I'm sure that Aston Martin as well, with a fantastic result for them after terrible struggles lately as well. So I'm so happy for them after last week. But we move on. That is not this weekend, the weekend after the F1 in Las Vegas. We're going to move on now and talk about football. I know there's been a lot of people asking me about football over the last week. There's been a lot of controversies in the video assistant referee room, the VAR as we call it, football-wise. There's been loads of controversy over the way goals have been given. I think there was a match Tottenham played Fulham the other night. No, Chelsea. Sorry. Chelsea. 4-1, I think Chelsea won that night. But there was so many decisions. And Zach, I have to say, this is the week where a lot of football fans have really questioned the VAR decisions over particularly the Arsenal and Newcastle match played last week, where VAR became a hot talking point after a Newcastle goal was controversially given.
Oh, honestly, Charlie, this week's games have been utterly crazy. Utterly crazy. I'm going to go through some of the results actually we had from the last week. So let me start off with Saturday as well. Fulham lost 1-0 against Manchester United. It took until the 91st minute for Manchester United to win against Fulham. Fulham held on off for so long. They were very unlucky to lose that game, I think, as well. Especially, given the circumstances, they were very unlucky for Fulham. The other game, Brentford eking out a 3-2 victory over West Ham. This game was close. We had Kudus, we had Neil Maupay scored in the 11th minute, and then we had Kudus with a brilliant goal, and then Jared Bowen in the 26th minute, leaving Brentford 2-1 behind. Then Mauropanos scored an own goal for West Ham. That made it 2-2. And then Nathan Collins as well managed to win it for Brentford. I mean, it was a game that West Ham should have and could have won, but cost it with several mistakes as well. So 3-2 Brentford win against West Ham. The dominant display, Manchester City 6, Bournemouth 1. I mean, that was a wipeout for Bournemouth, an absolute wipeout. There was goals on there for Decoro, Bernardo Silva, Kanji, Phil Foden, Nathan Ake. It was the Siesta that scored the 74th minute goal in that one as well. I mean, the other matches as well, the Saturday, Sheffield United eking out their first victory of the season. And a game that also ended up with a controversial penalty decision that Gary O'Neill was fuming about as well. That cost them the victory as well. The penalty that was given away as well. Norwood scored that in extra time. Gary O'Neill not happy on that one as well. Burnley lost 2-0 against Crystal Palace. Burnley having a really poor run in results recently as well. Everton and Brighton drew 1-1 as well. This is where we get to the controversial one. This is the first controversial one, I think, as well. Newcastle were 1-0 victory over Arsenal, but there was a very controversial VR decision about whether the ball went over the line during the build-up before the goal that was scored by Anthony Gordon. A lot of controversy about that. Was there a foul as well? Was there an offside? A lot of people saying that ball was over the line. I mean, it did look like it, but you have to get 100% of the ball over that line, if over the white line as well. It looked like that from what I've seen as well. Being Sports got a picture of it as well, and now that although that looked like it's over the line, Being Sports got some footage and a 3D model, and it looked like there was one part of the ball. It may not look like from that. There was one part of the ball that was just touching the white line. It was a very smidge amount, but it was still on the line for it to be counted. So yeah, I mean that doesn't look like it's behind.
That looks over to me, doesn't it?
Yeah,
You
it does
can
look
see it
over.
clearly.
It does look over, but that's the best camera angle they got, which is poor. There's no angle going from where the line is straight from the line. It looks sloppy from that angle. So there's an inaccurate representation of whether that's over the line or not. It looks like there was a smidge on it, but you can't see the smidge because it's so small as well. So yeah, that was controversial there. But Arsenal's winning one finished there. And then going to the Sunday matches, a 2-0 victory for Nottingham Forest over Aston Villa. That was a very surprising result, I have to say as well. Good result for Nottingham Forest. Luton Town held Liverpool to 1-1 draw. They could have won it, Luton, as well, if only it wasn't for the goal for Luis Diaz. By the way, from Luis Diaz, by the way, who we're praying for his dad, by the way, whose family has been caught up in an incident as well in Colombia. And we just wish him best wishes as well. And then we go to the Monday Night Football, which is probably the best game of the season overall. I mean, it was the most dramatic, shall we say. It really felt like Battle of the Bridge, but at the Tottenham Stadium version 2, really. Kavitsky scored the first goal in the 6th minute. And then, honestly, Tottenham looked like the most dominant team. And then there was VAR checks, cards, red cards for Christian Romero for, well, I mean, yeah, it was unfortunately a red card in the look at it for reckless challenge. Alderweireld got a red card as well. I believe it was the second yellow in that front. And then it resulted in goal from Cole Palmer at the penalty slot. Nicholas Jackson then got a hat-trick in the 75th, the 94th, and 97th minute as well. That was one of the most craziest matches I've watched all season. It was absolutely crazy. VR, the decisions that were taking too long, controversial penalty choices, penalties that were not given, some decisions that should have been given a red card over. I mean, it was honestly the craziest match I've watched all season so far. And that was absolutely mad, really was. But it resulted in Tottenham losing their unbeaten run as well. And yeah, I mean, blimey, that was full of anything as well. It really was full of it. Quite something in that regard. Next weekend, we got Wolves Tottenham at 12:30. That's one of the matches on. Man United v Luton is as well as the pick of the 3 o'clockers for me. Arsenal go along with Arsenal Burnley. Also at 3, you have Crystal Palace Everton. And then the 5:30 Saturday Night Football's Bournemouth v Newcastle and Eddie Howe reunion there. And then we got a number of games on at 2 o'clock on Sunday. Villa Fulham, Brighton Sheffield United, West Ham Nottingham Forest, Liverpool and Brentford as well. But then the game of the weekend is Chelsea v Manchester City at 4:30 on the afternoon as well. So yeah, that's happening next weekend in the Premier League.
Well, there's a lot of football next week. That's all I'm going to say. Do you know what? As well, I wanted to say my uncle, his name's Chris, who watches my show. By the way, I must admit he was pretty fuming. He's an Arsenal supporter, and he was fuming with the decisions. I know Mikel Arteta gave a passionate response in an interview. Jamie Carragher then and Gary Neville have been, I think, critical of the decision. But it's VAR is causing a lot of issues for football fans, a lot of headaches. Decisions being overruled, it's for me, is football being ruined by VAR? Yes, it is. I mean, it's one of them ones. The game is certainly being affected heavily by goals not being given and stuff. I mean, I don't really watch football that much, but this is what I've heard from people. So clearly, reception from VAR has to be looked at, I think. So, yeah, not ideal in that. Now, finally, before we go on and do the regular news, and we'll catch up with obviously the review of the stories I mentioned there at the start of the show. NASCAR, I'm just a quick little NASCAR update this week. Congratulations to our new NASCAR champion for 2023. It was announced the other day that after the final race of the season at Phoenix, we have a champion. And I believe it was Ryan Blaney that took the titles out. What did you make of the final NASCAR race of the year?
Yeah, congratulations to Ryan Blaney as well, who's won the NASCAR Cup Series for 2023. It was a very close race at Phoenix. It came down to the last couple of laps, to be fair, between him and Kyle Larson as well. Kyle Larson was very close in the last phases of the race but was just beaten by a very, very good performing Ryan Blaney as well. Now, Ryan Blaney didn't actually win that race as well. In that case, it was Ross Chastain who managed to win that race as well in first position. But obviously, he's not in the playoffs, so he didn't win the championship. But it was Ryan Blaney that therefore would finish in second position. He was the best placed driver out of the last four, and therefore won the NASCAR Cup Series championship. So congratulations to him. It's a well-deserved result. And it's always good to see a new champion on the grid, in joining the field of NASCAR champions as well. And Ryan Blaney has worked hard, I think, to be on that list of NASCAR Cup Series champions. So well done to him. A thoroughly good result from that end perspective as well. And it was a good drive as well. He managed to, William Byron got the better in qualifying, but it was Ryan Blaney through the middle of the field that managed to get the result that he needed and finish out the highest out of the four playoff drivers in it, and therefore win it as well. But congratulations to Ross Chastain for winning that race. It was a very good drive for him as well, and he did enough to win that race. But obviously he wasn't in the playoffs, so he didn't win the championship. But overall, well done to Ryan Blaney as well for winning the NASCAR Cup Series for 2023. It's all over now. Again, we're going to have to wait until February for all the action to re-begin again, starting off with the Clash at the Coliseum, which will be the non-points sort of expedition race that will be happening. And then back in the middle of February, we're back to the Daytona 500. So NASCAR got a bit of time off now, and then we're back for a new season again in February.
Yeah, and that will be the Daytona 500, which will be the first round of the season next year. So February is actually one of the earliest motorsport events to kick off. I've got a little list of the calendar here. Just going over it briefly with you guys. So obviously, as Zach mentioned, the Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum will take place on the 4th of February. That will be a 150-mile race, followed by as well a couple of Daytona dual races that will take place on the 15th of Feb as well. Then non-championship. The first real championship race is on the 18th of February, which is the Daytona 500 at Daytona Beach in Florida. That will be on the full full speedway circuit. And then, of course, the 25th will then follow pretty much weekly intervals after that. We then head to Atlanta for the Ambetter Health 400. So that is the first two races of 2024 announced. And we'll obviously keep you updated on the show if any driving news as well. You can also watch my other motorsport podcasting segment on there. Motorsport Weekly will be dropping a new episode this week, reviewing all the latest news from Formula One and many other sports as well. Moving on now from sports now to politics. Now, as I discussed at the start of the show, we've got a few stories to cover. Now, we're going to start off with the planned Armistice Day protest this weekend. Obviously, this weekend, Remembrance Weekend, Remembrance Sunday, and Armistice as well. Now, the government have announced that they're going to be essentially allowing these to go ahead. But there's been a lot of controversy over the way it's been done. Met Police, commissioners have all been told to be put on high alert for this weekend's Remembrance Day parades. Now, obviously, this is to do with what's happening in Israel. There's been obviously a war over there. Hamas is still attacking Israel. And first of all, can I say that attacks on Gaza, I mean, look, it's a horrible war. We don't want it to happen, but it's over there. Gaza's still been heavily bombed as well, from what I understand. But Zach, it got spicy in PMQs today, isn't it? Keir Starmer attacked Rishi Sunak's proper handling of not just these protests, but also the King's speech as well, which took place yesterday.
Yeah, just obviously to clarify, there's been no PMQs today. It's because the Parliament's just come back in session as well from the King's speech, and therefore the King's speech takes place, all the debate takes place this week, and then we move on to PMQs next week, hopefully as well. But yes, this is on the subject of the King's speech, where the Prime Minister, the Keir Starmer, has this, and the sort of Shadow Home Secretary has really slammed the Prime Minister's response to the protests that are going to be taking place this weekend. Now, we don't know whether it was going to be taking place this weekend or not. The Prime Minister, it's been very clear that to me that the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, have not wanted these protests to happen this weekend. They call, I mean, the Home Secretary has called them hate marches as well. But then again, she said worse things this week as well, which have been appalling and disgraceful in many things. I'll probably get back onto that as well in a minute as well. But yeah, this is over a pro-Palestinian protest that is due to be held this Saturday. And we know that this Saturday is Armistice Day. Armistice Day is the Remembrance Day. Remembrance Day is the 11th of November. There's been a lot of controversy on this because the Palestinian movement in the UK have organised this protest on November 11th. There's been a lot of controversy about this, whether this would affect, there would impact the Armistice Day remembrance events, where we all sort of stop, go full silent, and remember those we've lost in the previous wars as well, which is understandable. And it's a tradition that we do every single year, and rightly so. There's been a lot of controversy over this. Pretty much the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary want this not to happen. But the police have basically said that the protest that is taking place this weekend does not meet the threshold to be banned entirely. The police have also said as well they don't have the laws in the statute book to do this as well. So there's been a bit of disagreement between Mark Rowley and the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary about whether this protest should be going ahead or not. As well. In fact, Mark Rowley met the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, today in Downing Street. It looks like the Prime Minister has climbed down a little bit from the position that he took yesterday, which is saying that the protest should not be going ahead until this weekend. He has received reassurances from the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Mark Rowley, about these protests, and saying he's been reassured that these protests are not happening near Senator, and then they're not going to be done at 11 o'clock. And that they'll be done a couple of hours later as well. Personally, in my view, I think this is difficult because I always think that we should have the right to peacefully protest. And express to their people should have the right to express their views in these protests. I've always thought, though, that doing it on an Armistice Day is a bit crass and quite insensitive. Now, I understand also, to be fair, the arguments that we still play football matches on Armistice Day. We still go to the pub on Armistice Day. That sort of thing we've never complained about. But the idea I originally thought that a Palestinian protest where we've known that Hamas sympathizers has been in there as well, are going ahead on November 11th is a bit crass. And I still maintain some of the view as well that it's still quite crass and in some ways insensitive. But I also believe in free speech and freedom to protest. So I feel like this is a difficult one as well. The Prime Minister, I do feel like, and the Home Secretary have done some unfair influence. They're trying to do some unfair influence and interference with the Metropolitan Police work, and they should quite frankly back off, because if the Metropolitan Police say that the threshold's not been met for the protest to be banned, then fine. That's right. I mean, they could create exclusion zones. That can be done quite easily if they needed to do as well. But the response to it has been a bit. It feels like children, yelling at. It feels like children yelling at adults, really. From some responses, I completely understand it's a bit insensitive, and I'm not always a fan of these Palestinian protests. I know there's probably some innocent people in there that are peacefully protesting and actually protesting for the Palestinian movement without causing any offence as well. But like you've seen this week, Charlie, like we've seen last week, there are some idiots in these protests, terrorist sympathisers in these protests. I mean, did you? I know you probably saw me retweet this on social media, Charlie, about that video where there's literally people going around saying that actually Hamas are freedom fighters.
Yeah, I've
And
seen that. I've seen that,
not
and I condemn the tweet.
it's not my it's a
Well,
condemned
look,
tweet.
I condemn. First of all, I condemn what they do because I think that
Yeah,
I have to agree with you, Zach. It's these people are terrorists, and they're people that should not be going around and actually like sympathising for Hamas.
you had one lady in there, right, saying that Hamas wasn't the terrorist. The terrorist was actually United States and Israel. And then you had two other people saying that, and they were asked whether the Hamas being prescribed as a terrorist organization was a mistake, and they all answered yes. And I'm just thinking, what the heck? These are the sort of people that ruin the Palestinian movement, who are legitimately want a two-state solution and want their rights heard. These are the people that put the Palestinian movement a bad name and an awful name as well. And I just can't believe these people. I'm all for a Palestinian state. I'm all for its secure Israel. I'm all for the rights of Palestinian people and Israeli people as well. But these sort of Hamas sympathizing terrorists, I feel like should be locked up for sympathizing with a terrorist organization. I'm all for free speech, but when it's sympathizing with terrorists or showing, sympathy with terrorism, it can't be tolerable. I'm afraid it really is. It's just not tolerable, and I can't stand it as well. So yeah, there's people that let the movement down and they ruin it for the other thousands of people. Will probably some of them do march peacefully for their own rights, but there are a certain bunch that are terrorist sympathizers with Hamas and should be locked up in jail for their views. I'm sorry. And the fact they're brave enough to say it on camera, which then gets uploaded to social media, what is wrong with them? Do they not have an ounce of sympathy to those that have died and have been like slaughtered in this war? It really is awful that these people can have the views that they have come out of them. It's shocking.
I have to say, and I think that both sides will agree, left and right, that people like this should not be going out there. And as you said, Zach, you on social media about this, particularly coming out on X, Twitter, I've seen the tweets of what these people have been doing. I just think it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong for these people to go out there and say Hamas are heroes, because they're not. They were the ones who started this war off. And, when you see innocent Jewish people losing their lives, being like the massacre that we're seeing over there, it's horrible. We stand by the Jewish community on this show. The Jewish community, I've met some Jewish people, and they are some of the most respectful people I have ever seen. Honestly, Jewish people don't deserve this hate. Everyone needs to be treated equally, not what Hamas are doing. It's horrible, it's vile, and people must protest in a way that is sensible and also something that doesn't get them in trouble with obviously the police. And these people that go too far could be locked up in prison. And we want to lock these people up who are causing problems. It is bad, and it's serious talk tonight. Please, guys, any of you going to this protest at the weekend, just try and stay away from the cenotaph, please. We've got a big weekend coming up. We've got Remembrance Weekend. We've got Armistice Day on Saturday. We're just going to be remembering so many people who lost their lives during the war. We do not need this, honestly. I do not want to see this day being affected by horrible yobs of people, and not just yobs, but like people out there that could go too far, desecrate memorials and stuff. Do not go far and do that. We want people to protest peacefully and do it in a way that's sensible. And remember, Armistice Weekend is a big weekend. So that's all on that. We'll go through the King's speech very quickly, because there has been a few bits of news that I'd like to read out on there. First of all, growing the economy. And this is just a few bits. I'm not going to read out the whole thing. The King read out, a better future is where our economy grows fast and rapidly. Everyone across the union, new opportunities, paying jobs and that. So thanks to the new measures we've taken over the last year, inflation is down 11.1% for October 2022 and 6.7% in September. It's the largest fall in inflation since the 1980s. It also goes on to say as well. In the King's Speech, there's so many pages long. You can go and check this out on gov.uk, guys. By the way, keeping people safe as well. They're looking at ways of spraying to defeat and warmongers, discarding nitrous oxide. Antisocial behaviour isn't inevitable. It's a major crime. So looking tirelessly to crack down on antisocial behaviour and giving police forces, mayors and local authorities the power to deal with that confidence very quickly. It also goes on to say that they're wanting to deliver 20,000 extra police officers on the streets. By the way, this is all Conservative manifesto. Registers. Also, as well, this is some other things that are announced as well. They're looking at UK's dependence on fossil fuels. That was announced. Rishi Sunak did announce some new climate measures the other day, I think. Oil and gas industry, they're saying adding £16 billion to the UK economy. Also saying as well, data published, so the UK will continue to rely on oil and gas to meet its energy targets for net carbon zero by 2050. So basically, if you know what was said in Parliament by the other week, this is the aim of what the Conservative government want to achieve in the next parliamentary year. The next physical year, obviously, we're due to have general elections coming up next year, mayoral election in London as well. So, again, this is going to be politics time. And Zach, what was your takeaway from the King's Speech? And particularly, do you think the Conservatives are destroying the country?
Well, I don't think that, yeah. The King's Speech this year was quite light in terms of content. Lots of words, lots of fluff, but light on content. Not a lot of really new builds. I mean, there were some that were carried over. So there's a draft bill in there as well, but some were carried over. I mean, I'm going to go through some of them at the moment. I mean, like offshore petroleum licensing bill. This is the bill that's allowed legislate for new oil and gas licenses to be built in the North Sea as well for the next couple of years, and an annual round of oil and gas licensing in the North Sea. That is a very wedged issue that Conservatives are trying to put into this King's Speech. I imagine Labour are going to oppose that quite a lot because it will grant new oil and gas licenses. The Energy Secretary, by the way, the Energy Secretary went on the breakfast show, went on BBC Breakfast the other day and saying this: the whole point of new oil and gas licenses. She admitted that it wouldn't actually drive down the costs for households with the continuing oil and gas licenses. So actually, it's a pointless bill. And it's actually costly. There's also the automated vehicle bills, which will allow self-driving vehicles, and drivers will be immune from prosecution if they're not in the control of the wheel when a car gets involved in an accident on that one. That's a very interesting one. There's the Digital Market Competition and Consumers Bill, the cracking down to regulating on retail products regulating big tech, as well the Data Protection Digital Information Bill. As well, the aim is to reduce data protection burdens of outside the EU. The media bill, this is the news episode will pop up. Was basically wake of the Leveson inquiry. Will force media outlets that did not sign up to spec regulations pay both sides costs in a court dispute if they won, and also allows for Ofcom to regulate online streaming platforms as well. The arbitration bill, fine-tune 27-year-old law and dispute regulation. As well, the draft rail reform bill is not is draft bill, but it's unlikely to make it as well before the next election. The tobacco and vape bills, that means it will make smoking illegal for every year, increase the age of smoking until a young person can never ever buy a smoke, a basic or vape in something like that. That's going to be quite an interesting bill. It looks like that's going to be supported on that one. The leasehold and threshold bill that sees how owners buy any temporary rights to their property and pay ground to rent-owned landowners. That's also in there as well. The renters reform bill that has got interesting enough as well. They removed the no-fault eviction bit on that. That's very controversial that they've decided to do that. Interesting enough, although that it's in there, but it's only until a reform of the courts. That is interesting on that one. They've also got a football governance bill, which allows a football regulator. I very much support that. The Pedicaz London bill, interesting. the Holocaust Memorial Bill, which it's going to be, which is also hopefully going to be set up, and I support that as well. The economic activities of public bodies, ban public bodies imposing their own boycotts, diverse and sanctioned campaigns against foreign countries, as well. That's a very controversial one. Animal welfare license bill that's also in there. Sentencing bill. They commit tougher sentences for rapists and sexual assaulters as well. Forces people to basically go to their own, sentencing. Criminal justice bill as well in there. Investigative powers amendment bill. This proposal updates the highly controversial Investigative Powers Act, clearly for me to block multinational tech companies from rolling out things like end-to-end encryption or messaging apps. That's going to be an interesting one. Terrorism bill as well, victims and prisoners bill as well. That's carried over. And yeah, that's pretty much some of the bills that are going to be in this parliament. It's the largest King's speech since 2014, by the way, and that was before election was held. So yeah, the Conservatives have taken the same approach. Could it mean that they could wrap this all up for a May election, or even drag this on even longer? Who knows? But yeah, that was in the King's speech as well on Tuesday, and it's going to be debated until next week, and then we'll get back to normal parliamentary session after that.
Yeah, that's the King's speech. Just want to say a comment earlier on. Darren Sheridan comment. This will be the second final race of the season. It will be Darren, and we hope Darren will also potentially going to be having a new guest on next week. Darren is potentially going to be joining us next week as a new panelist on our show. So I'm very, very excited to announce this news tonight for you guys. So yes, we'll be having an extra guest on the show. Hopefully we'll be able to bring you more in the way of brand new news on the show. But moving on now to Plank of the Week. Now, I just want to talk about this Plank of the Week now. Now, as I said during the start of the news, I have a Plank of the Week. I've got a couple, actually. We'll go over one. Now, the first Plank of the Week, unsurprisingly, is going to be Hunter Biden. Now, who is Hunter Biden, before you ask? Joe Biden's son. Now, it's been alleged this week that apparently he is under a lot of pressure. Now, he's had gun scandals and stuff like that. And it's becoming clear now that Hunter Biden could be under a lot of pressure. It's been alleged that his son and other family members are subpoenaed in an impeachment probe. Now, it comes as the House committee subpoenaed Mr. Biden's son as his brother James and the Biden family associate. He's also requesting interviews. Now, it comes as the White House accused Republicans of a smear campaign to abuse it and conduct the power. But Hunter Biden is under a lot of pressure. It's to do with his finances, also to do with gun scandals. And I can see that this is a long time coming for Republican voters, that they certainly want Hunter Biden impeached as well. They're saying that younger Mr. Biden is currently facing 3 federal gun charges to which he's pleaded not guilty for. So there is a lot of Hunter Biden news that has been certainly coming out on US media, particularly Fox News outlets and many other units. But I just have to give Hunter Biden that nomination just because he's under a lot of pressure right now. And, I think Joe Biden certainly has to look up to that and say, this isn't good. Something has to be done to his son. But yeah, I mean, that I'm not going to go much into detail about that. That's my nomination for Plank of the Week. And my other nomination for Plank of the Week, well, I am going to give it, this is a surprising one. A lot of people will find this very, very controversial, actually. I'm going to give it to the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, this week. Now, you might be surprised about why I'm going to give it to Suella this week. This is over a comment she made about, I think, homeless people.
Yes.
If I'm correct. Now, the Home Secretary is under a lot of pressure right now. And I want to talk about this comment here. She's pursuing a crackdown for using homeless people by using tents. And I have to say, I find this idea very peculiar and very weird. I mean, for a start, would you house homeless people in tents? I mean, the idea of housing homeless people in tents, just it's like, what are we going to? It doesn't really do anything. Like, for a start, okay, the borders crisis is still bad. We're still getting all these migrants coming over. Some of these people are going to go homeless. Okay. Now, there is a bill that has been eventually included. It's called the Criminal Injustice Bill. But I mean, like, is it going to help people? Like, Miss Brotherman is saying that she wants the bill to help include fines for rough sleepers in that. Yeah, that I understand. But why would you essentially put homeless people in tents? I mean, I just find the idea a bit weird. It doesn't really do much. Like, you want to put homeless people in some warm housing, but not in stuff like, I mean, it's certainly an interesting one. So, unfortunately, Suella, I'm going to have to give you the nomination this week. There's been a few issues that she's had this week anyway. And, I mean, look, I'm sorry to say this, but she's got the nominations. What do you make to my nominations for playing?
Do you know what? I'm going to give it to you for the Suella Braverman one, because that was going to be my one as well, and I'm also going to include it in that one as well. Her comments this weekend on Saturday that she made about homeless people being a lifestyle choice was not only sensitive, was disgraceful, but it was beneath the office of Home Secretary. It was disgraceful comment. An absolute. It's been condemned by homeless charities because, you know, the reason why people use tents, by the way, is because they've got nowhere to live. So rather than, you know, lay on the street in the wet all the time, at least they'll go in a tent where they get some shelter. But the problem is, homelessness is not a lifestyle choice. It is a political choice. It is a choice that the Conservative government have made over the last 13 years that have resulted in homelessness rising. It is not a lifestyle choice in general. It may be for a minority, but for the vast majority, it is the homelessness has been caused by a political choice. Does veterans that are living on the street and don't have a home and therefore have to use tents a lifestyle choice? No, I don't think so. Does being kicked out of your house because of arguments and everything like that, or you've been violently abused and having to go somewhere, got nowhere to go, and everyone having to live in the street, a political a lifestyle choice? No, absolutely not. The comments by her were completely and just utterly disgraceful. And even though our own Conservative MPs on the front benches were appalled by what she said as well. The reason why I think she's saying this stuff, because she wants to create wedges, she wants to position her for her own ambitions for a Conservative leader in the future, probably. But her words were awful and disgraceful. It was disgraceful. And the fact she's going to try and ban tents from homeless charities, banning tents, like these little shelters that they have, because if they put them in a hotel, for example, then there'll be complaints. Then it's just generally shocking. She's genuinely. I know this may sound cruel, but she is Cruella de Vil. Literally, she's Cruella de Vil, but on steroids. That's how bad I think she is. And honestly, what can I say? I mean, she's definitely the plank of the week for me. An absolute narcissist of a politician, a very cruel and heartless person, and someone who's uninformed, ill-advised, and only in that position to flank her own political ambition. Whatever, Braverman, plank of the week by 1,000 miles.
It's when you, I mean, is it a lifestyle choice? I just don't. I mean, to be honest with you, when you look at comments like this, you'd think I'd agree with them. But when you look at about a tent, I'm like, well, tents, people use tents. The thing is that homeless people, they need somewhere to live. They don't want to be stuck on the street all the time, begging for money and all that. They need a home. They need warm homes, which is what the Conservatives, I think, have been a bit lacking on lately. So That's all I'm going to say. Please comment down below what you make to our nominations of Plank of the Week this week. Suella Braverman and also Hunter Biden there. It's plenty of nominations that you could give out as well. Comment down below. And also the protesters as well. What the protesters, the pro-Palestinian ones as well. What's been happening across the world. Civil unrest breaking out in a few countries. Comment down below what you make of them. We're now going to quickly go over Conversation Street this week. Now, obviously, last week we had The Voice on as well. The Voice UK returned for a brand new series as well. But the main showbiz we're going to be reviewing on this. Obviously, next week we're going to be bringing you an I'm a Celebrity update regarding all the new gossip from camp. We're going to talk a little bit tonight, actually, about some good news, some positive news stories, because I'd like to share this with you guys tonight. This is some positive news that I found this week. And honestly, this news, guys, is actually really important. So I'm going to talk about 5 free online courses that can help you upskill your autumn. This is some ways to upskill your autumn. You know, we're in November now. We're on the run into Christmas. This is to help you upskill what you want to do this autumn. So we've got Caught with Microbes and Fungi. Everyone's talking about gut bacteria. This is a free 14-week course from Harvard University. This is America, by the way, that allows you to learn cook foods that make them pop, from the history of fermentation to chemistry, cooking, microbes, bacteria and fungi. You'll be guided through bread, pickles, kefir, soy sauce, and much more. You've got Master of the Science of Happiness. That's another 8-week course with the University of California. Also, has Power Up Your Learning Skills. Try cooking using a sieve. That's by Oakley's and is a 15-hour course. You can also play your first chords. A bit like Jimi Hendrix has to start somewhere. In an on-demand video tutorial, pro guitarist Michael Placimino takes you through the first steps of learning to play guitar. Honestly, playing a guitar, I've tried it before, and it is actually a great instrument to play. And it's actually good because when you learn it, you can play a lot more songs on it if you tune it correctly.
Yeah.
And also become a global citizen as well. The Bristol University course explores opportunities. So yeah, I hope guitar tuning is something I've got to get better at, because my guitar isn't great at home. But yeah, I mean, there are some of the courses. You also got UK courses as well, like South Essex College and Chelmsford College. All them colleges offer like free online courses. I mean, Zach, the future of online courses is certainly going to help, and for many people, this could help upskill their autumn clearly.
Oh, absolutely. If we had a bit more British influence in them, that'd be brilliant. I mean, if you're the Brit, you could have just some of those courses, like play your first chords and everything like that. I can't lie. I've tried it maybe once. I'm not really brilliant. I've tried it when I was actually a bit younger, to be fair, and I can't say I'm exactly an expert in playing the chords and everything like that. I'm not really one of the strongest ones. I definitely don't have the strength that others could say I do. But it'd be nice. It would just be nice to see those sort of things develop over in the UK as well. With some of the things that you could do, and it'd just be really good to see. So yeah, I'd enjoy those sort of things if some of it would be offered to me.
Yeah, so that's that news. And quickly, Zach, I'm a Celebrity getting ever closer now, and there's been a few stars that have been rumoured to be going into camp, including one or two that have landed in Australia already, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, we still don't know who's going to go in exactly, as well, but we've heard a few rumours and murmurings about who potentially could be going in there. It will start on the 19th of November on ITV, by the way, just in case you're wondering about what's going on. There are obviously rumours about who's going in. So let me tell you some of the rumours. Marvin Humes is one of them. Nick Pickard, Hollyoaks is one as well. There's rumours that Nigel Farage could be going in, but I don't know at the moment. He's still presenting his GB News show as normal. And if he was going to go in, he probably would have to go in by now, hopefully, if he was going to be doing it. Interesting enough as well. The other ones I've seen as well, let me see.
Frankie Dettori.
Yeah, Frankie Dettori is another one. Sam Thompson is another one, the Made in Chelsea star. In that one as well. Interestingly, Alex Beresford as well, I saw has also been rumoured to be going in. Interesting enough. So that'd be interesting to see. Alex Better, Fred Sirix, Fred, and Gordon, you may know him as well. That'd be a good one. Olivia Atwood is another one that's potentially one. She withdrew last year. She was on last year, then she withdrew on medical grounds as well. Frankie Dettori, you mentioned. Daniel Harwood, who used to play Lola in EastEnders as well. Danny Cipirari, rugby star. Josie Gibson, who is currently a cover presenter on This Morning, is also being linked to the role as well. Alan Halsall, Coronation Street Lessons. Susanna Reid, potentially. Who know? Potentially. I know Danny Dyer. There's all. This one's going a bit off the top here. Denise Van Elton, the Vivienne. Interesting enough. Drag Race star going in there. Will be interesting as well. A lot of names that have been rumoured going in as well. In that instance as well. So yeah, a few names that have been bubbling about. I expect the likes of Dettori are all probably going to happen as well. Interesting enough, I think the likes of Dettori as well is probably going to happen. Not sure about Farage personally. It looks like Sam Thompson might be going in as well. But yeah, so there's still a lot of names. We don't have the official on that, but still a load of names that could be going in there very soon.
Well, last year they put, was it Matt Hancock in the jungle?
Yeah.
And they got a politician. Well, good for politicians winning because they got voted to do all the trials. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes on. And we have a start date next Sunday, 19th of November. I can't wait for the. I tell you what, we all can't wait for the return of I'm a Celeb. It'll be a great show. Obviously hosted, of course, by Ant and Dec, Anthony McPartlin and Declan Donnelly, who hosted the show. 9:00 next week. Hopefully next week on the show, we can reveal the full lineup of I'm a Celebrity. I bet it's going to be released in the next few days, guys. So yeah, the coming days we'll be able to view, hopefully, who'll be on I'm a Celebrity, which will be very, very interesting. Now it's time for the musical interlude this week, or the musical segment of the show. We're going to be reviewing this now. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a song covered, of course, this is a song from The Greatest Showman, and it's a bonus track and covered by the one and only Craig David. It's time for Come Alive. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Stumble through your days, let your head hung low. The sky's a shade of gray, like a zombie in a maze. You're asleep inside, but you can't shake awake. 'Cause you're just a dead man walking, thinking that you're from the option. But you can take the switch and brighten up your darkest day. Sun is up and the colors blind. Take the world and redefine it. Leave behind your narrow mind and never be the same. Come alive, come alive. Go and light your light, let it burn so bright. Reaching up to the sky, and it's open wide. You're electrified, and the world becomes a fantasy more than you could ever be. 'Cause you're dreaming with your eyes wide open, and you know you can't go back against the world that you were living in. 'Cause you're dreaming with your eyes wide open. So come alive, I see it in your eyes. You believe that lie, that you need to hide your face, afraid to step outside. So you lock the door, but don't you stay that way. No one living in those shadows, you don't even know how that goes. 'Cause once you see it all, you'll never be the same. Little bit of lightning strike, but enough to keep on shining. You can prove there's more to you, you cannot be afraid. Come alive, come alive. Go and light your light, let it burn so bright. Reaching up to the sky, and it's open wide. You're electrified, and the world becomes a fantasy more than you could ever be. 'Cause you're dreaming with your eyes wide open, and you know you can't go back again. Come on, come on, shine now. Come alive, come alive. Go and light your light, let it burn so bright. Reaching out to the sky, and it's open wide. You're electrified, and the world becomes a fantasy. More than you could ever be. 'Cause you're dreaming with your eyes wide open. And you know you can't go back against the world that you were living in. 'Cause you're dreaming with your eyes wide open. So and the world becomes a fantasy. More than you could ever be. 'Cause you're dreaming with your eyes wide open. And you know you can't go back against the world that you were living in. 'Cause you're dreaming with your eyes wide open. So come alive.
Thank you there to Craig David for that song there, Come Alive. Of course, taken, of course, from the film The Greatest Showman. I mean, Zach, what do you make of that song? Obviously, The Greatest Showman is a very successful film, and that song in particular is a big song in the film sung by Hugh Jackman.
I forgot it was actually in The Greatest Showman, which actually I watched as well. And that was probably a really decent film, I have to say. It was, I was thinking, if I watched The Greatest Showman, it wouldn't be my type of film. Oh, how wrong I was. It was actually a really good film. And that was actually from it. And I completely forgot it was actually from it. But yeah, another Craig David classic, shall we say, for that one. It was. I remember it's a cover of another song. I can't remember what the cover of the song that he did was of that one, but it's definitely a cover of a song.
It was Bridge Over Troubled Water, I think, that one he covered, if I remember. Done it for the Grenfell.
Yeah, it might have done. I can't remember what
song as well, yeah.
But it was good. It was a good. It's a good cover, whatever it was. And it was very good. Definitely a good song overall.
Just to announce as well, Craig David has also announced tour dates for 2024 as well. For TS5 sets. If you want to know the TS5 dates, he's announced a few next year. The 3rd of May, he'll be at the TS5 in the Park in Brighton. He'll also be heading off to Warwick Castle on the 6th of July. 2nd of August, Dreamland Margate. And on the 31st of August, he'll be heading to Hitchin Priory, Hitchin, UK as well. He's also, I think, doing a concert in Italy very soon as well. So TS5 sets, I thought I'd announce a few of the dates there. That's some of the TS5 concerts he's announcing as well for 2024 and also 2023 as well. He'll be performing for a charity ball, I think, in Italy as well. It'll be very interesting to see how he gets on. But moving on now to the newspapers, press preview now, final segment of the week, where we've got to review the newspaper headlines. Let's go through. Short and sharp tonight. Let's go and get these done. And we'll start with the newspaper headlines. The Eye front page goes for Tories accuse Home Secretary of fueling UK far-right anger. Backlash against her Braverman grows among Conservatives who fear comments will inflame tensions at the pro-Palestinian march. May Clash of Remembrance services as well. The Independent goes, locked up for 10 years. The reason why he's autistic. The allegation also identified 2,000 learning disabled patients held in security hospital units for years. Oh, that doesn't sound very nice. It sounds horrible, in fact. Prime Minister reads right at Met Chief. That is echoed in the Metro headline there as well. And the Financial Times, SoftBank paid $1.5 billion to WeWork Bank days before bankruptcy filing. That is some of the papers that have been out at the moment. So what do you make so far as the current paper's been released?
Yeah, only 4 papers at the moment. I'm sure there'll be more throughout the evening that comes out tonight. But let's begin with the Eye. Tories accuse Home Secretary of fueling UK far-right anger. And obviously it's referencing the fact that not only the recent comments recently as well. Backlash against Suella Braverman grows on Conservative fear. Her comments will inflame tensions at pro-Palestinian march that may clash with remembrance events. This is obviously the Home Secretary is becoming just really low criticism for her comments this week, from her homelessness comments to some of the comments that she's made about the Israel-Gaza conflict, including saying that all Palestinian people who do there are hate marchers, which I think is inflammatory, and I think is not unnecessarily wrong, because not every, and like I said before, not everyone who goes on these Palestinian marches are hate ones. We might as well say the same, that there could be a minority of hate marches in the Israeli ones, which we haven't seen to see any reason that they are at the moment. They're the Israeli ones have been behaving quite well. There are a majority of them at the Palestinian ones are doing fine, but there's some that are letting it down. They're not all hate marches. We know that. And then also there's homeless comments. And then I also talked about the fact that Home Secretary is dangerous and totally irresponsible. That's a serving to Minister telling her job is to calm things as well. As police revealed that far-right groups and hooligans are expected to pose the biggest threats of violence this weekend. So it's not only just potential Palestinian rallies. There are hooligan groups as well, far-right protesters and football hooligan groups. Why football hooligan groups? I don't know. That are planning to protest to protect the cenotaph. You don't need protection. They're fine. The police can do fine on that one as well. Chief of Staff Gavin Barwell, Form 1, says that Brown was retoxifying the brand. And there's WhatsApp group messages that organised counter demonstrations have been used to spread anti-Islamic messaging and cards of violence across the country that's been used as well. I mean, yeah, this is the result of what Suella Braverman has been saying over the last few days as well, I have to say. I wouldn't be surprised on that one as well. The Independent goes for a rather shocking investigation, and it affects quite a lot of us as well. Nicholas is one of the 2,000 patients with learning difficulties dumped and forgotten about in secure hospital units in a scandal uncovered by the Independent, which shames a government that has failed in its duty to care for the most vulnerable. 2,000 learning disabled people have been held in secure hospitals for years and years and years. This is Nicholas. He's 28 years old. He's been held in that hospital, if I remember that secure unit, for 10 years without any justification as to why. This is a scandal that it just proves that disabled and those with learning difficulties are left behind, forgotten about, and treated appallingly. And the Independent have done this rather horrendous investigation about the reason why he's been locked up and why they're locked up as well. It's a really horrible and rather devastating investigation that uncovers the spread of what's going on at the moment in terms of what's happening in these units and other areas as well. It really is bad. The Metro PM reads Riot Act to Met Chalif. This is where I feel like the PM has sort of lost his battles in some ways as well. This is the pro-Palestinian protests as well. The pro-Palestinian march through London will go ahead on Armistice Day, despite a showdown between Rishi Sunak and Chief Mark Riley, who basically Mark Riley is this. They don't have look based on what the evidence they've got so far. It's not worth banning these protests, or despite the fact that the government's screaming about it, and the fact that he was summoned to the number 10 by the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister did say that he'd be held to account if trouble erupted near the cenotaph, as the nation remembers its war dead as well. I have to say, they will be held to account. I do agree on that, but let the police plan this out quite as needed to be. And finally, the Financial Times, because we don't have much papers at the moment. SoftBank paid $1.5 billion to WeWork bank data for bankruptcy fillings. As SoftBank has sent $1.5 billion to Goldman Sachs and other lenders just before WeWork's bankruptcy filling as well, at the cost of one of the worst venture capital investments in history for the Japanese group as well. The payment takes the total that SoftBank committed to WeWork to more than $16 billion since initial investment in 2017, analysed by the Financial Times. So this is all talking about a bank that's gone wrong and has sent money off as well, trying to save the banks. I mean, yeah, I don't want to see banks going down, but financial mismanagement really is being seen in this one, unfortunately, as well. I just want to read one more paper that's just come out, by the way. The Guardian have just released their front page. It's come up twice here, but there's one. There is, I know it's come up twice here. They're going with the one. Starmer fights to control party as shadow ministers threaten to quit. We did have one resignation from the shadow front bench yesterday as well. It was the MP for Bradford West as well. That was the one that decided to quit the front bench. Or Bradford East, sorry. So my apologies. Bradford East, I think it was. Imran Hussain, who was one of the shadow ministers for work, for the future of work, decided to resign his position from the front bench yesterday over Labour's position and wanting to call for a ceasefire in Israel and Gaza. Now, the Guardian has therefore gone and focused on the fact that more shadow ministers are threatening to quit. With 4 shadow ministers prepared to quit in the coming days and up to 10 others on resignation watch. Sources say the shadow ministers are ready to resign rather than vote against a ceasefire in the Middle East, which Starmer has refused to back. Do you know what I think? And I feel, for me, as a Labour supporter and a Keir Starmer supporter, that these ministers that are resigning over ceasefires that are not going to happen, at the end of the day, I appreciate the fact they're going to resign rather than stay on the front benches and decide to bicker on the front bench and say that we're going to have a ceasefire, we're going against government position. I find it that resigning principle, I'm fine with that. But when they're resigning from the party, like some Burnley councillors decided to do, like the leader of Burnley Council, and decide not to vote Labour in the next election, I think this is just posturing and attention seeking at the end of the day. I'm all for a range of views. Okay. You see John McDonnell has a different view as well, but he's going to fight for Labour government next election. Some of these ministers that are posturing, they know that a ceasefire is an unrealistic position because Hamas will not do it. They'll just repeat whatever they want to do on October 7th again. Israel has a more flexible position, but they're not going to do one until the hostages are released, which Hamas won't. So we're in the same position as well. The leadership at the moment is claiming they want to do humanitarian pause. I think that's a reasonable position so far. It's only the realistic position they've got so far. I just, I feel like these MPs resigning from their ministerial roles, and all these Burnley councillors that are saying they refuse to vote Labour next week because of some issue abroad, the ones that are resigning from the party, not their ministerial jobs, are just grandstanding attention seekers who have got no realistic position, will shout ceasefire at the top of their voice without realising the consequence of finding a solution to get a ceasefire that's not possible so far. So, yeah, I appreciate some of them the ministers are resigning on principle rather than and they've committed to voting for Labour next election. Fine, okay, but you're making disunity out of it as well. And I'm afraid for these shadow ministers that are resigning and those that are actually resigning from the party, you're not saying that the shadow ministers are ones with their fault. They're doing it on principle, out on good consciousness. I feel for them, but there's just some that are, resigning for the sake of it. They're grandstanding, and actually, all these ministers resigning is actually making Keir Starmer's position better. Let's just be honest about it. It makes him better because the fact that he's retained his position despite pressure from the left shows that he can stand up for his own rights and that he is prepared to take this to the long haul to make sure that he's right, correct, aligning with the government on this issue. And I think he's taken absolute the right approach on this. And some of those that are resigning from Labour totally, such as the Burnley leader of the Burnley Council, are totally wrong, attention-seeking, and quite frankly, if they want a ceasefire, they should call up Hamas and see if they want a ceasefire as well, because quite frankly, they're not going to give it either. So, yeah. I'm annoyed at this because there's some attention seekers. And quite frankly, we'd be better off without these attention seekers and grandstanders and people that are just hopeless, quite frankly. All they're going to do is resign over one little issue that is not even significant to them, or even is going to affect them directly as well. And yeah, it annoys me, Charlie. I actually get annoyed at this. because it's just grandstanding today. But I feel like the Labour position at the moment is the correct position, despite there's been some the odd bit of miscommunication, which I feel like could have been dealt with better early on as well. But overall, I feel like Starmer's position right now is the correct one.
That's all of the front pages for tomorrow, which of course is the 9th of November 2020. Actually, we'll quickly just refresh again, see if there's any more that have come out. The Daily Star have released I found Bigfoot in Wales. Rather surprising news from a Sasquatch hunter there as well.
Bigfoot.
But that is all the papers there released for the 9th of November. So that's the show for tonight. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. We'll be back again next week. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next week for another edition of the Tonight Show podcast. Take care and good night.